I've got a lot of stuff I want to talk about and get through in this video, and it's mainly pertaining to Raw, Smackdown, and the up-and-coming pay-per-view, Royal Rumble. So if you have any comments on any of these things or any of the things I'm going to touch on in this video, then please let me know down in the comment section below. Also, there was a lot of newsworthy items this week which I want to touch on as well. So I'm going to get started straight away with the opening segment of Smackdown, which was the New Age Outlaws versus Cody Rhodes and Goldust. You know, when the New Age Outlaws came out and they were doing their stick, I was like, you know, yeah, this is fun shit. And it's funny when they said, we got 2 words for you. And then the Miz interrupted them saying, The Miz! And I'm like, oh, props for the Miz for trying to put himself over on commentary. But he is one of the most irrelevant characters in WWE right now. And Michael Cole and JBL had a field day just picking apart all the stuff he was saying. God damn, that was funny. And in this kind of era with the New Age Outlaws, you know, they're never going to be healed. They're never going to get booed because people love seeing old legends come back, such as the New Age Outlaws that were so entertaining back in the day and are entertaining in this era. So the fans are always going to cheer them, so that led to plenty of canned heat because that's what we need to do on SmackDown. As for the match itself, it was fairly solid stuff. You had Vicky Guerrero come out randomly during the match and say Cody Rhodes and Goldust will be in the Rumble, and that leads Billy Gunn to get in the roll-up on Cody Rhodes. I'm like, I really didn't think Vicky Guerrero coming out was necessary. I guess it's to pertain the authority storyline going forward with these guys. I don't know. But I really didn't think that was totally necessary. You could have had a roll-up win without the Vicky Guerrero stuff. I don't know. So I guess this is going to lead to the New Age Outlaws getting some kind of title shot down the line. Maybe at Royal Rumble, maybe at Elimination Chamber. I don't know. But I don't think it's a bad idea. You know, I really don't. I mean, putting up New Age Outlaws versus Cody Rhodes and Goldust, I think that's a pretty decent feud to put the tag titles on the map for a little bit because the New Age Outlaws have been, you know, pretty entertaining since they've come back, and it's just a short-term feud which I think could be good for, you know, Cody Rhodes and Goldust and the tag team division in general. One of the biggest surprises of the week was the fact that Kofi Kingston actually managed to get a pinfall victory over Randy Orton on this week's edition of Raw. You know, this, like I said, this was a legit surprise to me, considering their history and what happened in 2009. I bet no one in their right mind would have ever thought that Randy Orton would have put over Kofi Kingston on this week's edition of Raw. And you know what? For a guy like Kofi Kingston who's been stuck in the mid-card for as long as he has, and I know I really don't like his character, but I really hope this goes somewhere for a guy like Kofi Kingston. I really hope that WWE uses this as a springboard to actually maybe give Kofi Kingston some kind of push, perhaps to the main event. As you know, it's pretty long overdue, and he would be like a new guy in the main event scene. Does he have, whether or not, does he have what it takes to be a main eventer? Well, you're only going to find out if you put him in that spot, aren't you, WWE? The only issue I have here, and it's a minor gripe, is the fact that I've just seen Kofi Kingston on NXT getting beaten by Alexander Rusev, who is an NXT guy, not a WWE roster guy. He just got beat by him in 5 minutes, and now I'm supposed to buy that he can beat Randy Orton, the World Heavyweight Champion, or WWE World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, where is the consistency there? No, I'm just saying. So on this week's edition of SmackDown, we had Alberto Del Rio versus Rey Mysterio, a rematch from Raw, and a match that we've seen all too many times before. Not as much as Sin Cara versus Del Rio, but it seems like the only person Del Rio can ever seem to face nowadays is either Sin Cara or Rey Mysterio. It's just weird. And you know what? I didn't need to watch this match because we've seen these two have good matches. We know that these two have very good matches. They have good in-ring chemistry, etc. So we don't really need to watch the match. You know, why do we know they have good matches? Because we've seen it all before. And how many times does WWE need to put Del Rio versus Rey Mysterio, Del Rio versus Sin Cara, Del Rio versus Ziggler, or Del Rio versus Sheamus? And just after a while, you just run out of patience with WWE on these things. And you know, Del Rio put a post-match attack on Rey Mysterio, which, in all intents and purposes, is designed to get him heat. But at this point, no one really gives a shit about Del Rio to actually care to really bother about booing for him. And is it me? Or is Del Rio calling up Batista one of the biggest jokes ever? Is it a rib on Batista for returning? You know, is it a rib on him? Because in real, Batista would maul Alberto Del Rio. You know what? I am looking forward to Batista's return on Raw, more so because I just want to see what he's going to be doing going into WrestleMania. You know, is he going to be facing Randy Orton? Is he going to be facing a Brock Lesnar? You know, what big match is he going to be putting? Because that's essentially, I guess, why they brought him back. Because they needed major star power for a big WrestleMania, and they're going to put him in some kind of big match, you would think. As for him going into the Royal Rumble, maybe he's going to win the Royal Rumble to face Randy Orton at WrestleMania. You know, who really knows? But the main thing is, with a guy like Batista returning for the first time in 4 years, I am excited for this. I am excited. So we had a promo segment with the Wyatt family on this week's edition of SmackDown. Basically, Bray Wyatt saying that after what happened on Raw, he is going to get back at Daniel Bryan. And that is exactly what I'm going to talk about next. Daniel Bryan on Raw turned on the Wyatt family after 2 weeks. That's right, 2 weeks. If you want an example of how bad and rushed WWE storytelling is, this is it. Now, there is a silver lining to this, which I'm going to touch on in a minute. But you had Daniel Bryan, the most over babyface on your roster, join the Wyatt family for some ungodly reason. If you can't beat them, join them, I guess. Only to have him turn on them 2 weeks later. You know, if you were going to go with this, you know, at least go all the way. You know, they basically did this to show that he is over, you know, which we kind of already knew. You know, I thought this whole thing was stupid. I really did. But I look at the silver lining of this. The fact of the matter is, Daniel Bryan is still over. And thank God, you know, in my opinion, thank God they did kind of cut this off, even though they didn't need to do it in the fucking first place. Thank God they did cut it off. Now he is face again, because turning him heel was a dumb idea. And I'm looking at you, Vince McMahon, because we all know this was your dumb dick idea. You know, he's the most over guy in the company, so what do? We make him join the fucking Wyatt family. So thank God, in my opinion, they probably did cut this one short. It was a damn good idea, in my opinion, even though it was stupid for him to join him in the first place. There was no need to do this to get to this point at all. There was no need for Daniel Bryan to get from point A and B in this feud to join the Wyatt family. So it was pointless, and I have no idea why they had him join the Wyatt family, only to turn on them 2 weeks later. You could have achieved this without even doing any of that, and then it, you know, would have been a hell of a lot simpler. But I will say this too. Daniel Bryan had the crowd, you know, pretty much in his hands on that at the end of that show, and it made for a pretty cool main event moment. I will say that. So even though I thought this whole thing was stupid, there are a couple of silver lines to this which, you know, I will allow WWE credit for. You know, WWE, if you want to give Tamina a bodyguard gimmick, then having a job to just about every diva is not the way of doing it. End of. So this week we had some very, very sad news in the wrestling business, and that was the fact that Mae Young passed away this week. Now, we knew that she was having some issues and she was in hospital, and it was only probably going to be a matter of time before she was actually pronounced as dead. So, rest in peace, Mae Young. And I just want to say, some of your favourite memories of Mae Young, please tell me them in the comment section below, because she has led an illustrious career, and they had a very, very good video package pertaining to her career, past and present, on this show. And it really did get me thinking what my favourite memory of Mae Young was. Now, a lot of you probably know, the first WWE pay-per-view I watched properly was Royal Rumble 2000. Now, there were many good matches on that show, and I did enjoy that Rumble as a whole. But one of the biggest highlights of that show was the fact that Mae Young was in that swimsuit edition contest, whatever it was. And that was a memorable moment, seeing Mae Young in that swimsuit competition. And, you know, it's those kind of things that she did was kind of just out of the box. You know, an old lady getting together with Mark Henry, an old lady getting powerbombed through a table by the Dudleys, an old lady giving birth to a hand. It's things like this which separate Mae Young from a lot of WWE divas on the roster, past and present. And the fact that she was still doing it until she was 90 years old says a lot about Mae Young, and says, you know, it says a lot about her as a performer and as a person. So from me personally, and also from NJ, as he's definitely heard the news, and from all the people I know, we all extend our sympathies to the family of Mae Young and Mae Young herself. So we had a promo segment with Paul Heyman, basically talking about how he is not scared of the Big Show as he has Brock Lesnar by his side. And we all know that Brock Lesnar doesn't make Smackdown tapings, so he wasn't going to be getting too much protection on this show as Big Show comes out, and I have never ever seen Paul Heyman run faster. He was storming out of that ring, wasn't he, when Big Show came in? And this just felt to me like one of those Smackdown filler segments which was going to continue on to a bigger segment on Raw. That's really all this was. It was just there to remind us that Big Show was going to be going up against Brock Lesnar, and they're probably going to have a big segment on the Go-Home Show this Monday. You know, probably because it involves Brock frickin' Lesnar. Big E Langston versus Fandango happened on this show, and I don't really want to talk about the match because it's pretty meaningless in my opinion. All I will say is for Big E Langston, who's the current IC champion and is getting somewhat of a push by WWE, it's important that he keeps getting wins chalked up on the board. It's important that he keeps beating people, even if they are at the level of Fandango right now, which is pretty much irrelevancy in WWE. And it's important, in my opinion, that WWE at least give them a decent run in the Rumble if they want to continue that push going forward and trying to make some kind of star out of Big E Langston. So it was announced on this week's edition of Raw that the first inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame for WrestleMania 30 was going to be the Ultimate Warrior. Now, in my opinion, there is no doubt that Warrior was a big star in his time when he was in the WWE/WWF back in the early 1990s, etc. And at one point, he was the biggest star, in the business, perhaps, in the WWE, perhaps even the business itself. And just based off that merit alone, the fact that he was such a big star, he deserves a place in the Hall of Fame due to that, along with the Hogans, along with the Flairs, along with, other people such as Roddy Piper, Mike Tyson, etc. They were big stars in their time, which helped, propel WWF to points which they thought they could never go to, probably in the 1970s and 80s when Vince McMahon took over from his father. So in my opinion, just on that merit, Ultimate Warrior deserves to go into the Hall of Fame, just like I believe Mike Tyson deserved to go into the Hall of Fame. Despite the fact that there's been controversy surrounding Ultimate Warrior, essentially at the end of the day, he was at one time the top guy in WWE. That's all I'm going to say about that one. It's been a very good week for the Usos this week. They got a massive spot on Raw. They were in the opening segment, and they're in the main event, and they even managed to get a win in a steel cage match over the Wyatt family that included Daniel Bryan. So naturally, a win over the Real Americans was very necessary on this SmackDown if they were going to continue that push going forward. It's good to see a team like the Usos who I don't believe ever really got a shot, really back in 2010, 11. It's good to see them getting in some kind of big spot in WWE, and whether this will go anywhere, we don't really know. So it's been a very good week for the Usos this week, and that's kind of propelled them a little bit. But one guy that hasn't had a very good week is Zeb Coulter. And I found it funny when he came out in a wheelchair and a neck brace, and he was going on about, Big Show's a big bully! It was just hilarious. It has not been a good week for Zeb Coulter, and of course, as usual, it's not been a good week for the Real Americans either, who could barely even drag him down to the ring on the wheelchair. And the Usos even pushed the wheelchair into Jack Swagger. That was funny. So on this week's SmackDown main event, we had CM Punk committing career suicide by calling out the Shield and the New Age Outlaws. That's right, 5 people. Of course he's not scared of 5 people. He can beat the Shield 3-on-1. Why would he be scared of being 5-on-1? I'm just saying. So as we saw on Raw, the New Age Outlaws turned on CM Punk during the 6-man tag with the Shield. And, I think judging off that, it wasn't too surprising, but judging off that, it is very obvious now that this is leading to CM Punk versus Triple H, with the New Age Outlaws being friends with Triple H and CM Punk believing that the authority has been against him this whole time. So it looks like the end game to this, and they're starting to name drop Triple H, and it's starting to become a little bit more clear now, especially after this segment and last week's segment, that Punk versus Triple H is going to be the direction for WrestleMania. As for this segment itself, you had CM Punk calling out the relevant people, all 5 of them, New Age Outlaws, and the Shield. Kane comes out to stop what's going on, and, only to go in there and chokeslam CM Punk himself to end the show after some words were exchanged between them two. So maybe they're setting up for a CM Punk Kane match at Elimination Chamber, potentially, which may lead to Triple H versus CM Punk at WrestleMania. I don't know. But this was some decent advancement here, even though, most of the bigger segments are going to happen on Raw. This was decent storyline advancement for this storyline going forward, which is essentially CM Punk versus the Authority. I think it's fair to say right now that there is a little bit of buzz surrounding WWE, which is no surprise going into Royal Rumble and going into the road to WrestleMania. I mean, it's the kind of thing they need, especially going into a WrestleMania as monumental as WrestleMania 30, which is going to be a massive WrestleMania for them. I mean, we've got Dave Bautista returning. We've got Ultimate Warrior in the Hall of Fame. We've got Brock Lesnar, doing Raw shows now, going into WrestleMania. We've got the Royal Rumble coming up. Not to mention WrestleMania 30. Not to mention the fact we've got the WWE Network coming up on February the 24th, which is going to include an NXT live show on the 27th, which I'm going to talk about more on tomorrow's NXT review. But right now, there's just a lot of stuff going on in WWE, which is getting me a little bit more excited for the product than it would usually do. And that's no surprise, like I said, going in the road to WrestleMania. As for this week's edition of SmackDown, the way I'm seeing SmackDown right now is the fact that it's never going to be like a Raw where big things happen. It's more one of those shows where it's just continuing on Raw storylines. to Raw. SmackDown is like the filler show, which just reminds us that those kind of feuds are there. And in that sense, this week, I felt SmackDown did a pretty decent job in doing that with the promo segments and some of the matches on there pertaining to most of the bigger storylines going into Royal Rumble, and at least setting the tone a little bit for what could happen at WrestleMania with regards to people like CM Punk and Triple H. If you have any comments on this show, please put them in the comment section below. And remember to pay your respects and also put some of your favourite memories of Mae Young in the comment section below. That has been it from me, Mr. Parkin, on behalf of the British Fist. Thank you very much for watching this review if you have, and see you next week for the same SmackDown review, same old place, same old shizzle. Goodbye.